The evening silence inside the apartment felt unnatural heavy, compressed, almost buzzing. Daniel unlocked the door the same way he had hundreds of times before, yet tonight the click of the lock echoed down the hallway like a warning. He stepped inside, dropping his keys into the ceramic bowl by the shoe rack. Normally, Lydia would be sitting on the couch, wrapped in that oversized gray sweater she loved, greeting him with a tired smile from behind her laptop. But the living room was empty. The lights were off. The air held the faint trace of her perfume, mixed with an unfamiliar tension he couldn't name. Daniel moved through the space slowly, scanning every detail, as if the room itself was trying to confess something. A cup sitting half-washed in the sink, a blanket thrown over the armrest instead of folded, her charger unplugged but left on the coffee table. None of this should have meant anything, but he felt something changing in the undercurrent of their home. Something subtle yet sharp. He found her in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone with the kind of focus she usually reserved for work emergencies. When she noticed him, she startled slightly, too slightly, like she had rehearsed a reaction and failed to perform it on time. "You're home early," she said, forcing lightness into her voice. "Yeah," Daniel replied, watching her carefully. "Meeting ended sooner than I thought." She nodded but didn't get up, didn't smile, didn't lean forward to kiss him. Instead, she flipped her phone over, screen down, as if it was something fragile she needed to protect. Daniel felt the first crack, then tiny, nearly invisible, but unmistakable. He sat beside her, leaving a respectful distance, though he hated the fact that he even had to. Lydia exhaled, a shaky breath she tried to disguise with a cough. "Everything okay?" he asked, keeping his tone calm. "Yeah, just tired." Another half-truth. He recognized her pattern. She always compressed her emotions when she didn't want him to see something. But never like this. Never with this edge of secrecy. He reached gently for her hand, but she hesitated a second too long before letting him hold it. That pause stabbed him deeper than if she had pulled away entirely. They sat in silence. Not the comfortable silence couples grow into after years together, but a suffocating one, where every second felt like a signal left unread. Daniel glanced at her phone again, the glossy black screen reflecting their distorted silhouettes. It felt like the room was holding its breath. "What's going on, Lyd?" he whispered. Her fingers tightened around his, then loosened. She stared ahead, eyes unfocused, like she was searching for the correct answer inside her own mind. But before she could speak, her phone buzzed up just once, short, sharp. Her shoulders tensed instantly. Daniel felt his pulse spike. She didn't flip the phone, didn't check who it was, didn't even breathe normally. Instead, she whispered, "It's just work." But no work message had ever made her look like that. The crack in the silence widened. Daniel stood slowly, feeling something cold slip into his chest. Lydia watched him, fear flickering behind her eyes, but she said nothing. That fear wasn't for him. It was for whatever she was hiding. That was the moment he knew something had already begun to break. Daniel tried to sleep that night, but it was impossible. Lydia lay beside him, turned to the far edge of the mattress, her breathing to control to be real sleep. The room felt colder than usual, as though some invisible current of distrust seeped through the walls. He stared at the ceiling for hours, replaying every detail from the moment he walked in. The flipped-over phone, the startled glance, the shake in her voice, and the message, that single buzz that had turned their bedroom into a battlefield without a sound. By sunrise, he knew one thing with painful clarity. He couldn't keep pretending nothing was wrong. The next morning passed like a poorly rehearsed script. Lydia moved through her routine mechanically, showered, tea, hair pulled into a loose knot, but her eyes never met his for more than a second. Every time Daniel tried to speak, she redirected the conversation with artificial ease. "We're low on laundry detergent. I might work late tonight. Can you check the mail later?" None of it touched the real issue. None of it even grazed it. He watched her pack her laptop, tucking her phone into the inner pocket of her bag with obsessive precision. She had never hidden her phone before, It used to lie everywhere. Kitchen counter, couch cushions, bathroom sink. Now it was practically locked behind glass. Just before she left, Daniel stepped closer. Lydia, she froze mid-movement. Her hand was on the doorknob. He spoke quietly, not wanting to push her, but unable to hold back. Are we okay? She turned her head slightly, not enough to face him. Of course we are, but her voice wavered, and Daniel didn't believe her. Not anymore. When she left, the apartment fell silent, suffocatingly so. Daniel sat on the edge of the couch, running his hands through his hair. He didn't want to be the kind of person who snooped or doubted. He didn't want to cling to paranoia. But his instincts weren't wrong. Lydia was pulling away, slipping out of reach, like she was living an entire second life just beyond the corner of his vision. He needed air outside. The day was gray, clouds hanging low like bruised metal. He walked without direction, passing familiar buildings that suddenly felt foreign. His thoughts spiraled, small moments from the past weeks crystallizing into one reality. He had tried to ignore. She had become distant. She guarded her phone. She worked late more often than any project required. She flinched at simple questions. She smiled less. She hugged him like she was afraid of lying through touch. Daniel reached the small park near their apartment and sat on a bench beneath a leafless tree. A woman jogged past with her dog. A pair of teenagers argued near the swings, but everything felt muted, obscured by the storm building inside him. He didn't know how long he sat there before his phone vibrated in his pocket. He almost didn't check it, but when he did, his entire body went still. A message from an unknown number, containing only one sentence. You deserve to know what's going on. Daniel's breath caught. He read it 3 times, trying to make sense of it. No name, no context. Just those 9 words that felt like the ground cracking open beneath his feet. His fingers trembled slightly as he typed back. Who is this? What are you talking about? He hit send. No response. The park seemed suddenly too open, too bright, too revealing. Daniel stood, looking around like the sender might be watching him from some distance. Each passing face became suspicious for a second before he forced himself to look away. The phone stayed silent, but the fear didn't. When he finally returned home, the message still burned in his mind. He paced the living room, waiting for Lydia, debating whether to confront her or wait for more information. Neither option felt right, but doing nothing felt impossible. As afternoon turned into evening, the door finally opened. Lydia stepped in, damp from the light rain outside, wiping her glasses on the sleeve of her coat. She looked exhausted, but not work exhausted. Emotionally exhausted. Daniel met her eyes. She stopped walking. There it was again, the fear she tried so hard to hide. You're home early, she said quietly. I needed to talk to you. Her shoulders tensed. Her fingers clenched around her bag strap. What about? He hesitated, then spoke carefully. About us. A flicker of panic flashed across her face. Real panic? The kind that had nothing to do with work or stress. She set her bag down slowly, as if afraid sudden movement would shatter the fragile peace between them. Daniel, today was long. Can we talk later? I don't think later is an option anymore. Her eyes darkened, not in anger, but in resignation. Like she had expected this day to come. Like she had been waiting for the moment the truth would surface. Just as Daniel was about to speak again, her phone buzzed in her bag. She flinched violently, and Daniel realized something. This wasn't just guilt. This was fear of being exposed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse her. He simply asked the one question that had haunted him all day. Who's been messaging you? Lydia's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her eyes filled with something he couldn't read, sorrow, conflict, maybe even regret. But what she whispered next felt like a blade sliding quietly between his ribs. Daniel, please don't ask me that. The room went cold because only one kind of truth needed protecting that urgently. Daniel stood frozen. Lydia's whisper still hanging in the air like smoke. Please don't ask me that. It wasn't denial. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't anger at being accused. It was fear. Fear of the truth. Fear of what would happen if she finally said it out loud. The silence between them tightened, stretching thin as wire. Daniel swallowed, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Lydia, what's going on?" She turned away, pressing her fingers to her temples as if they ached. Her breath trembled. For a moment, she looked small and tired and cornered. "I can't do this right now," she whispered. "That's not an answer." "I know." Her voice cracked at the edge, and she sank onto the couch, elbows on her knees, head buried in her hands. Daniel approached slowly, sitting across from her. He kept a careful distance, enough to show he wasn't attacking, but also that he wouldn't let this go. "You're scaring me," he admitted quietly. "I'm not trying to, but you are." Lydia lifted her head. Her eyes were red, not from crying, but from holding tears back for too long. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she said. "Find out." Two words that changed everything. Two words that confirmed his worst fear. Daniel felt his chest tighten, but he forced himself to breathe. "Find out what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached for her bag, the same bag that now seemed to guard every secret she'd been hiding. But as her hand touched it, her phone buzzed again. The sound sliced through the air. Lydia jerked as if struck, snatching the phone and shoving it into her pocket before Daniel could see the screen. That movement alone told him everything he needed to know. "Who was that?" he asked, his voice low. "No one. Don't lie to me." Her lips trembled. "Daniel, please." He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. When he opened them, he met her gaze head-on. "Is there someone else?" The question landed like a blow. Lydia's breath hitched. She didn't answer, but she didn't deny it. Her silence tore through him more violently than any confession could. Daniel stood abruptly, pacing across the room. He felt the walls closing in, the ceiling dropping lower, the air thinning. The apartment suddenly felt too small to contain the truth. When he spoke again, his voice cracked. "How long?" Lydia stared at the rug. "I didn't mean for anything to happen," she said softly. "That's not an answer." She wiped her eyes with shaking fingers. "Daniel, you have to understand." "Don't," he cut in. "Don't try to soften this. Don't make it something vague. I need the truth." She hesitated, then whispered, 2 months." The world went silent. 2 months, 8 weeks, 60 days. A lifetime's worth of betrayal condensed into a number that felt unreal. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Who is he?" Lydia squeezed her eyes shut. "I'm not telling you. You owe me the truth." "No," she said suddenly, voice sharp. "Telling you his name won't fix anything. It will only make things worse." "Worse than what?" "Worse than being lied to for months. Worse than imagining every late-night shift. Worse than the message from an unknown number warning him. He deserved to know." Anger surged in him, hot and choking, but he forced it down. He wasn't going to yell. He wasn't going to lose control. He wanted answers, not chaos. "Did you ever plan to tell me?" he asked. Lydia looked at him with eyes full of guilt. "I tried," she whispered. "Every day. But every time I looked at you, I couldn't." Daniel's chest burned. "So you kept lying instead." She didn't argue. There was nothing left to defend. He walked to the dining table and leaned on it, gripping the edge so tightly his knuckles turned white. He needed something solid, something real, because everything else felt like it was disintegrating around him. "Are you still seeing him?" he asked. Lydia swallowed hard. "I ended it." "When?" "Last week." "That's not long ago." "I know." Silence again, heavy, smothering. Daniel stared at her. The woman he married, the woman he trusted, the woman who now felt like a stranger sitting in their living room. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why did you do this?" Her voice was barely audible. "I was lonely." He laughed, not from humor, but from disbelief. "Lonely, Lydia? I was here. I was always here." She shook her head. "You were here physically, but you were working, you were tired, you were stressed. You didn't notice anything. You didn't notice me." Daniel stared at her in stunned silence. "That's how you justify it?" he asked quietly. "That I didn't notice you enough." "I'm not justifying anything," she said, her voice cracking again. "I'm explaining. There's a difference. He wasn't sure there was. And him? Daniel asked. What did he give you that I didn't? Lydia's eyes filled with tears, the first real ones. Tension, she whispered. And I hated myself for wanting it. Daniel felt something break inside him, something he didn't know how to fix. He sat down slowly, as if his legs were no longer steady. I can't believe this, he said. I know. I trusted you. I know. I loved you. I still don't, he snapped. Don't say you love me. Not tonight. Lydia bit her lip, tears slipping down her cheeks. Daniel, what do you want me to do? He looked at her, truly looked at her. The guilt, the fear, the exhaustion, the regret. She wasn't the same woman she was 2 months ago. And honestly, neither was he. I don't know, he admitted. I don't know yet. But he knew this. Something fundamental had cracked. And cracks don't vanish. They grow. Just as he stood to leave the room, his phone buzzed. He froze. It was the same unknown number. A new message appeared. She hasn't told you everything. Daniel's blood ran cold. He turned slowly toward Lydia, who looked up at him with widening eyes, eyes that recognized the tone of the notification, eyes that filled with panic because she knew whatever came next would change everything again. Daniel's fingers tightened on his phone as he reread the message. She hasn't told you everything. His pulse hammered in his ears. Lydia's expression shifted, shock first, then dread, then a kind of hollow resignation. She didn't even ask what the message said. She already knew. Daniel lifted his gaze from the screen. What else is there? He asked quietly. Lydia shook her head too quickly. Daniel, please, don't go down this road. That's not an answer, he said, taking a slow step toward her. What else have you been hiding? Her breathing turned shallow. She stood up from the couch and backed away slightly, not from fear of him, but from fear of the truth. Daniel, I swear, I told you everything that mattered. He raised the phone. This person thinks otherwise. Her eyes flicked toward the screen for a fraction of a second, guilty, terrified. Daniel's stomach twisted. Who is sending these messages? Him. Lydia didn't answer. He stepped closer. What else aren't you telling me? She pressed her palms against her forehead, squeezing her eyes shut. I can't. You can and you will. Lydia's voice broke. It wasn't supposed to go this far. The room fell silent. Daniel inhaled sharply. What does that mean? But before she could answer, his phone buzzed again. Another message. Slowly, Daniel looked at the screen. Ask her who he really is. His blood chilled. He turned the phone so she could see it. Lydia's face drained of color. I'm asking you now, Daniel said softly. Too softly. Who is he? Lydia sank onto the armchair, as if her legs could no longer hold her. She clasped her hands together, knuckles white, staring at the floor. Daniel. It wasn't just some random guy. A cold, metallic fear spread through his chest. Then who? He demanded. She hesitated a long time before forcing herself to meet his eyes. It was someone you know. His breath caught. Who? Someone from your work. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. Give me a name. Daniel, please, give me a name. Tears began to slip down her cheeks, but she forced the words out. Evan. The world seemed to tilt. Evan. His coworker. His friend. Someone he ate lunch with. Someone he mentored. Someone he trusted. 1,000 memories flashed at once. Evan laughing at his jokes. Evan asking casual questions about Lydia. Evan offering to help around the house when Daniel worked late. Daniel stumbled back a step. Evan. His friend. His friend. He felt sick. Daniel? Lydia whispered, reaching out. But he jerked away from her touch as if burned. How long? He asked, though he already knew the answer. 2 months, she said. But it's over. I swear to you it's over. Daniel tried to speak, but the words dissolved in his throat. His phone buzzed again before he could respond. He looked down with trembling fingers. Ask her why he ended it. He lifted his eyes to Lydia. Why did it end? She froze. Lydia, he said again, voice hoarse. Why did Evan end it? She swallowed hard. He didn't. Daniel's jaw tightened. You just told me. I said I ended it. Why? She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He stepped forward. What happened between you two? Tell me the truth. No more hiding. Lydia wrapped her arms around herself like she was suddenly freezing. Evan's wife found out. Daniel's heart stopped. He's married. Daniel whispered. He felt like the floor had been ripped away beneath him. Lydia nodded, tears spilling freely now. She found messages. She confronted him. He panicked. He said he had to stop everything before it destroyed his wife. Daniel felt physically ill. So what about my life? He asked, his voice cracking. Did anyone care about what this would do to me? I did, Lydia cried. That's why I ended it when he did. I didn't want to lie to you anymore. But you did, Daniel shot back. Every day, she covered her face with her hands. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Then another buzz. Daniel felt the vibration before he heard it. He looked down. This time the message wasn't a warning, not a hint, not a suggestion, but it was a picture, a photo of Lydia and Evan together, taken inside Daniel's home, on Daniel's couch. Daniel's vision went white around the edges. His hands shook uncontrollably. His breath turned sharp and uneven. Lydia saw the change in his face and whispered, Daniel, what is it? He turned the screen toward her. Lydia's scream was barely audible. Oh my God, she whispered, staggering back. Where did you get that? How? But Daniel wasn't listening anymore. Everything he thought he understood had just shattered again. The messages weren't coming from Evan. They weren't coming from Evan's wife. Someone else was involved. Someone else had access to his home. Someone who wanted him to. No, his phone buzzed again. Daniel stared at the new message, his heart pounding. You've only seen the beginning. The room felt colder than before. Much colder. For a long moment, Daniel couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even blink. The words on the screen felt like they were vibrating. You've only seen the beginning. He lifted his head slowly as if underwater. Lydia was trembling near the window, her hands over her mouth, eyes swollen from crying. But even through her panic, she saw the change in him. Daniel. What's happening? Who is doing this? He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't know. Someone had been sending him messages, sending photos, monitoring his life with chilling precision. Someone who had been in his home, close enough to take pictures, close enough to watch. Daniel finally forced himself to speak, his voice a low, controlled monotone. I'm going to find out. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Lydia rushed toward him. Daniel, please don't go like this. We need to talk. We've done enough talking for one night, he said without turning around. Then let me come with you, she insisted, reaching for him. He stopped her with a single look, exhausted, hollow, but resolute. No, stay here. Before she could argue, he added quietly, and don't answer any unknown numbers. She froze. Daniel walked out. Outside, the night air felt sharp, biting. His thoughts ran in a dozen tangled directions, but he knew one thing. Whoever was sending those messages wanted him to react, to panic. He wouldn't give them that satisfaction. He needed answers, and the first step was obvious. Heaven. Daniel drove toward Evan's house, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles whitened. The city's lights blurred as he replayed the messages, the photos, everything Lydia had confessed. By the time he reached Evan's quiet street, his pulse had settled into a cold, steady rhythm. He'd parked across from the house. Lights were on inside. Daniel approached slowly. Before he could knock, the door opened. Evan stood there looking exhausted, startled, but unmistakably guilty the moment he saw Daniel. Daniel, Evan said quietly. I was expecting you. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then you know why I'm here. Evan nodded. Come inside. Daniel didn't move. You tell me here. Evan looked down, ashamed. I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this. Lydia and I. It was a mistake. You think I came here to talk about your affair? Daniel asked, voice dropping lower. This isn't about that anymore? Evan's head snapped up. What do you mean? Daniel stepped closer. You didn't send those messages. Evan stiffened. What messages? Daniel studied his face. Evan wasn't lying. He could see the confusion in his eyes. The fear. The realization that something bigger was happening. Daniel pulled out his phone and showed him the last photo. Evan stared at it, horrified. Daniel, I swear I've never seen that picture before. Someone was in your house taking these. Danny's voice was ice. Yes, Evan swallowed hard. My God, who would do that? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Evan hesitated, then said quietly, there's something you need to know. Daniel braced himself. 2 weeks before everything ended, Evan said, someone texted me from an unknown number too. Daniel's pulse kicked. What did they say? Evan looked him straight in the eyes. They told me to stay away from Lydia, or they'd tell you everything. Daniel froze. A warning? The same kind of message he'd been getting. So you ended it because someone blackmailed you. Daniel said. Evan nodded. I thought it was her, or you, or someone from work. But now, he gestured to the photo. Now I think someone else has been watching all of us. Daniel stepped back, exhaling sharply. This was worse than he expected. Before either of them could say more, Daniel's phone buzzed again. Both men went silent. Daniel looked down. A new message. A new photo. But this time it wasn't his house. It was inside Evan's house. A picture of the two of them standing at the doorway just seconds ago. Taken from behind them, taken inside the house. Evan stepped back, terror on his face. Daniel, what the hell? The phone buzzed again. Another message. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. I told you. You're only at the beginning. And then a third message. One that made Daniel's heart stop. Check your home. Daniel ran. When he reached the house, the door was slightly open. He hadn't left it that way. Daniel pushed it gently, every muscle tense, every sense sharpened. The living room lights were on. The window was cracked. The curtain swayed with the cold air. Lydia? He called out. No answer. His chest tightened. He stepped deeper inside. Something was wrong. A faint noise came from the hallway, something shifting, moving. He turned toward it slowly. Lydia, is that you? Nothing. He took another step, then another, until he saw it, on the floor, by the bedroom door. A phone? Lydia's phone. Screen cracked. Still warm. Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. Lydia? He yelled, running toward the bedroom, but the room was empty. Only one thing was left behind, a note on the bed. Messy handwriting, fresh ink. His hand shook as he picked it up. There were only 3 words. She's with me. He'd barely had time to process before his phone vibrated again. A final message, a live photo. He tapped it. It played automatically. And there, in the dim frame, Lydia sat on a chair, eyes red, breathing hard. Somewhere he didn't recognize. Behind her, a figure stepped into view, face hidden, hood pulled low. Voice distorted. The figure leaned toward the camera and whispered, you want the truth? Come find me. The video ended. Daniel stared at the screen, feeling a cold, electric determination settling in his bones. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. This was a hunt, and it was just beginning.